Greetings, I'm Karen Colligan, and welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. I'm the founder of a leadership organization called PeopleThink, where I created the Keep It Real leadership program that equips and elevates emerging and advancing leaders. It's all online, and it can be done anywhere, and it can be done at any time. What I know for sure is all leaders lead differently. And that's the beauty of leadership. It's so important to understand what your unique leadership style is. Now, that word is worth repeating, unique, because everyone has their own leadership style, which will inform how they're going to help their team and help their organization move forward. You got to be real, and you got to be bold, and you gotta drive to take action. Because let's face it, people look to their leaders for vision. They look to their leaders for coaching and growth opportunities. This is why, as a leader, you want to be crystal clear about your unique leadership style and competencies. The whole purpose of the Let's Talk Leadership podcast is to speak to a variety of leaders who are in different industries with different titles at different levels to better understand their unique way of leading. We're going to ask each leader the same 6 questions so we can provide you with a diverse way of looking at leadership. We want you to find those treasures that will help you be the best leader only you can be. So let's get moving and talk to our next leadership guest. In this episode, I am thrilled to be speaking to Beatrice Zatorska, who is the co-founder and CEO of SmartTribe. We're going to hear all about Beatrice's approach to leadership. Beatrice, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Hi, Karen. Really nice meeting you and everyone else who is listening right now. I am thrilled and really humbled to be invited to your podcast. Thank you very much.
Of course, so excited. So Beatrice, tell us a little bit about who you are and give us a snapshot of SmartTribe before we even get into this leadership conversation.
I started SmartTribe just less than 2 years ago with my amazing co-founder, Chris Jack, because I really believe that there is a wealth of tech and talent coming from academia. And it's such a waste that we are losing that amazing people and scientific research which can really improve our lives. The idea came from my work experience. I have been management consultant for about 20 years, and I traveled the world hunting for scientists and their work. And then I was transitioning that to corporates from Siemens, LG, Apple, you name it, Huawei, and so on. I lived in about 20 countries around the world over those years and learned a lot, seen a lot, and I realized that this is such a big problem. And everybody knows it. Everybody nods their head. Yeah, we definitely need to democratize academia. We do need that, problem solvers help us. But actually, this situation we have right now, the old-fashioned, old school way of collaboration between industry and academia is not solved. So less than 2 years ago, Chris and I set up the platform where we're allowing academics and industry professionals to speak to each other the same language and collaborate to each other benefits. We used modern techniques, borrow from dating sites, even gaming, and so on, just to make the conversation between academics and industry people, between individuals. There's a conversation between individuals, not between institution of academia and institution of company, but between individuals. And it became viral. Absolutely. We have been growing every single month since we started 20%, and it's no stop. People love what we do. They are very excited on both sides of the equation, both in academia and the world. So obviously it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, right time as well. No question about that. So there's two things I want to say before we even get into our conversation, Beatrice. I love that whole idea where you were hunting and you can almost see it traveling 20 countries. I'm coming after you. I'll find you. So, I mean, that is a beautiful visual. And this other thing about the conversations with individuals, because at the end of the day, it's about relationships. It's not about me sending, my information into this big, gigantic black hole and where does it go? Because I might bring something to the table that no one would see on paper. And it's about that connection that makes us recognize, wow, there's so much more behind this person than just what's written down on this sheet of paper.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Love, love, love that. All righty. So thank you for that. And let's get into our first question. So, I've talked to a number of people, leadership is my love. And so there's so many ways to define leadership. And it's because it's so personal, kind of like what we just talked about. It's so personal to have an individual conversation. Tell us, Beatrice, how do you define leadership?
I have learned about leadership the hard way. When the first time I became a manager, let's start with that, with my experience with management, about 10 years ago, when my previous company I worked for sent me to Poland and to Russia, and they asked me to open the offices from the scratch. And I had absolutely no experience, no guidance, no help whatsoever, and had to make the success. And made plenty of mistakes. I took really, really bad, sometimes personally, some of the failures, but I had to own it. And then I realized it took me a few years to really learn what does it mean to be a manager and what is the difference between manager and a leader. But I had fantastic team who really helped me to succeed. And I realized that leadership is about not about being given position. It's not about a title, not about authority. It's about inspiring others to do great things and make those individuals successful. That is my lesson learned and my understanding what is leadership.
Wow. Can I work for you? When do I get to work for you? Just, I'll fly across the water to get to you. No question. And so what, in terms of what you just described, this whole idea about the distinctions between management and leadership, and there are significant ones, we won't get into them right now. But what I think is astounding is how an organization will ask you to do something that is so big for them. I mean, open an office in Poland, open an office in Russia, and oh, by the way, figure it out. It doesn't make sense to me. And obviously, it really helped you grow. It helped you learn the distinctions between management and leadership. And, your definition of inspiring others to do great things is evident of your learnings through that. And, I'll just shake my head. What does that company think in doing that? And if they did it to you, Beatrice, they're doing it to other people as well.
That's for sure. I mean, my boss back then was sitting in Silicon Valley and said, well, you know what? You're a smart cookie. You will figure this out. I think it's very common.
Well, right. Well, it's about being smart. That's not the issue. Well, you wouldn't be doing what you were doing if you weren't smart. It's just there's different competencies necessary. So again, we could go on, and I could go on and on about this because I see it all the time. So love that you got to that definition for you for leadership. Thank you. So the second question is, what are your top 3 values for you as a leader? So how do you operate as a leader?
I love that question. I really, really do. It's in the heart of leadership. I believe that to be a leader, it's not you work towards this, you learn, you have experience, but there's a little bit, you have to have it in yourself. Not every person is a great leader. They're great managers, they are great CEOs, but they are not necessary leaders. They could be the richest people in the world, the most named in the Forbes 500 or whatever, but it's not necessarily they are the leaders. In fact, I think nowadays in the tech industry, we suffer a little bit a crisis of leadership, to be honest.
Agree.
So I think you have to have it inside, and this all comes from values. When I started SmartTribe, this was one of the very, very first thing I spoke to my co-founder, Chris. We talk about values. We both are very different. He's the tech person. I am business and strategy, and also we have very different characters, different sets of skills, which is great because it's complementary and good for the company. But one thing we have in common is values, and this is the very first conversation we had when we were talking to each other. It's like, what is important for you? What do you do in private life? What matters to you? This was very, very first conversation we had, and since today, we work very closely because we are co-founders. But I know how he thinks because I know what values he has and what values we're sharing together. So this is long introduction. What are the most important values for me? But it's super, super important. Everything is based on the values. For me personally, the most important values which defined leadership is integrity. And integrity, not just in the workplace. It's not, I'm behaving in the office in a certain way and then I go home and behave like an idiot. No, you have to be, you have to have the integrity through and through, all the time. You have to be that kind of person. Now, one of my role models and people I'm looking up to, I've been always for a very long time, is John Chambers, is the ex-CEO of Cisco. Fantastic example of a leader who is a great integrity and inspirational leader. I mean, also what a success, taking the company from $70 million to $40 billion annual revenues. And he made 10,000 of the employees millionaires.
Yes. Yeah.
Until today, he helps and he mentors others.
He does. And he wrote a book on leadership. He's a big proponent of really helping people up. No question about that.
That's right. And I always admire him also for his integrity. So it's, as a managers and leaders, CEOs, we are very often put in difficult situations. We have to always juggle between I call them the three pillars or the three saints: the employees, customers, and shareholders. And sometimes we have to make decisions which not exactly are in line with one or another. But if you can do it all with integrity, and hats off. So this is, for me, is very, very important. Humility, it's another value. If you have to be people person, you have to understand others, have empathy. If you are a leader who people cannot relate to you, then it's really, really hard to lead. I mean, there are so many great values leaders should have. And the third one, I'm kind of between. It's a courage and honesty. I mean, both. Two very important. You have to be truthful, honest with yourself and with the rest, with everybody else. I mean, courage as well, because courage, it takes a lot of chutzpah. Yeah. To be a leader, you have to own it. You have to take responsibility. You have to lead others. You have to inspire others and motivate them. And make decisions, very, very important. Don't hesitate. Sometimes you make mistakes, but it takes a courage to take that ownership and make decisions.
Yeah, no question. And that whole piece of courage is the fact that, we may not always get it right. And we have to take a stand. And the people who work with us are looking at us to make sure that we are being bold and we're able to take that stand. And then, you know what? If it doesn't work out, then we can shift it. And I just want to make a comment, Beatrice, about what you said about the chutzpah, because that again is a big distinction between management and leadership. And you've got to have the guts to be able to follow that North Star, which are your values, which for you, integrity, humility, and courage. And then when you think about humility, you think about, that's all that emotional intelligence. And it's so often people go, oh, that's the soft stuff. No, no, no. It is the hardest thing to do, to really pay attention to your emotional intelligence and to really pay attention to humility and feel it and let your employees know that that's the truth. So it goes back to that honesty as well, because people know if you're faking it. People know, especially around things like that.
The emotional intelligence, I think I'm a little bit gifted with that, but thanks to one of my disabilities, which is dyslexia. And I suffer a lot as a dyslexic as a child and not diagnosed for a very long time. But now it pays off, and people with dyslexia are being praised for exactly emotional intelligence.
Yes.
One of the advantages, which is now much more appreciated than before.
Much more appreciated and accepted. And there's an awareness around it now. Beatrice, when I was growing up in corporate America, there wasn't always a big awareness around that. So I just love that people are even speaking about it. So thank you. Thank you for that. All righty. So we're going through an enormous amount of change. There's no question about that. And, between the global pandemic, I mean, we could go on and on, the social awakening, the economic implications of those things. And so you've started a new company. It's about 2 years old. And now we're going through so much transition. So you came right into, oh, hello, it's pandemic year for us. So how do you lead through transition and change, Beatrice?
So you touched two topics. One is positive, one is negative. I think the cultural shift, it's a positive thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of movement of Me Too movement, Black Lives Matter, and so on. It's all positive. And I really believe it's laying the grounds for further changes, not only in the developed world, but in the developing world, emerging markets, which is much more difficult and takes time. Because the technology is changing us, and it's going to change us even faster. There's going to be more social unrest because of it. And we don't really have solutions to it as a countries, governments, and society. So those changes happening right now are really, really important. So I see this as a good thing, the cultural shift and changes. And actually in a really short space of time.
Yes.
I remember when I started my career as a woman in business, a woman in tech, men were very often talking to me. I was very lucky not to experience sexism or any prejudice, although I work always with men-dominated environment. But it was sometimes a little bit, patronizing and so on. So the culture was very, very different. Mm-hmm. Now, within 20 years or 18 years, wow, what a different change! It's great. So that's a positive changes. Now you have to remember that I worked in the world of science, and scientists are probably one of the most liberal part of our society. So I'm quite privileged. And when I work with our community, it's always people are open-minded and they really don't care who you are, where you've come from. It's what is in your head, not how your head looks like. So it's a privileged work in exactly this community, which is focusing on what you're doing, what you're thinking. So the cultural shift is great. Still so much work to do. And I think we have responsibility towards other places in the world and other people. I feel very strongly about developing regions, and especially about women's rights in developing regions. There are some places in the world where you want to be a scientist and a woman, they can be shot in the head.
Yeah.
So I do feel quite strongly about it. But COVID, it's a negative, obviously.
Yes.
We all suffered this. It was shock to all of us, and many people died and suffered and helped, and will continue suffering for many, many years to come. Outcast is not just economy, our mental health and everything else. So how to navigate through that as a managing a company? I mean, showing one of the values I mentioned earlier, humility. I think it really plays a big role during the COVID times. Showing a little bit vulnerability. I mean, as a leader, it's really hard because you have to lead as an example. You should be not weak. Everybody. Some people say, "Oh, yeah, don't worry about it." No, you should. You should be really leading as an example or showing the strength. But being understanding. I think now in the workplace is super important. Being understanding, listen to people, be sensitive. I have a lot of empathy. It's not about praying about a private life, but be aware what is happening. And sometimes people perform less, but might be very different reason for it. Not because they just don't have the skills or they hate the job. It's just maybe because they have some problems at work, or whatever. So it is quite important to have the humility and understanding with employees. I think going forward in the future of work, we will be talking a lot about taking care of mental health. It's going to be absolutely given.
Yeah, I agree.
And one of the things leaders needs to remember: listen, adapt really fast. Adapt. So being good, making good decisions and relatively quickly is important. Be decisive. Don't wait. Act on it, and adopt really fast. I think one of the skills I have learned living in different countries is to adapt very quickly. Learn, observe, and act on it. And adopt. Be sensitive to the people, cultures around you, and do it. Also, be creative by doing it. And my last point is to be positive. Definitely positives helps here, not to be entirely very optimistic and blindfolded, but to be positive. And your positives and enthusiasm and passion really, really helps others. You have to carry that every single day.
And be positive with a realistic component to it. I mean, as you just indicated, there's going to be mental health issues. There's so many people are responding to this in different ways. So I love that you said we really have to listen. You have to learn, observe, and adopt what's going on. You've got to move fast, no question about it. And the other thing that I think is really important, Beatrice, about what you said is the fact that everybody's handling this differently. And therefore, as a leader during all transitions, is we have to actually have a conversation with our teams and our employees to understand what is going to be important for them and what will they need moving forward, because every single person is going to be different. And so that's really critical as a leader to make sure that we stop long enough to listen and have that empathy. And I'll go back to your humility. I mean, because again, everyone is dealing with, we don't know actually what everyone is dealing with. And so the ask is really important, and you've got to learn, observe, and adapt fast. Quickly.
That's absolutely, we are a very small team, so I'm quite lucky. And I have the opportunity to get to know each of them very, very well and be sensitive to what they're going through and accommodate that. So I'm in, I think, privileged positions than any other leaders or who manage big companies right now have much more difficult in also logistically situation. I mean, when the COVID started, we had a very different business model.
Yeah.
And it took us probably 2 weeks, we pivot. And it worked just fine. Now it's better for us, actually. And now we turn the situation into our advantage. And
yes.
COVID actually helped us to grow.
Using technology you may not have used, and using different business solutions that you might not have even thought about. Goes back to what you just said about you got to be creative. You got to be seeing things that you may not have seen before. That is definitely for sure. All righty. So we know the best leaders are curious. And the best leaders are always learning. And so what do you do? What tools, what resources do you use to continually grow as a leader?
I am going to be really biased now because I learn a lot from research papers. Okay, I'm coming across as an absolute geek.
Whatever works, Beatrice. You're very unique. As I say, all leaders are unique. This is just your way of learning.
It's true. There's so much there. There's 165 million research papers in the world,
Oh my
and
goodness.
most of it nobody can understand and read because it's written in the scientific jargon. But
Yeah.
so it's one of our mission in SmartTribe to actually translate this into plain English and industry applications. So it's part of my job, part of learning, and I got into it years ago, and I love it. There's so many answers there. When I have some challenge or problem, I want to figure out customer behavior or new technique about something. There's always research paper about it, and it's so interesting. It's peer reviewed by others academics. It has already done research, some hypotheses, and then really smart people spend a lot of time talking about it and thinking about it. There's plenty of answers in research papers. I really, really would like more people to have access to it and be able to source the knowledge and experience from it.
Well, yeah. And you said something pretty important there about the translation. So if there's 165 million research papers out there, and of course it's about research. So they had hypotheses, they had to test it and so on and so forth. And when the written word is finally taken and you begin to look at it, if I can't understand it, that doesn't help me. The good news is there's going to be people like you who are going to translate it. And that's exactly what it is. It is another language. And you had said earlier you speak 7 of them. This is no, you don't. You speak 8 of them because you're going to take this and help us better understand. Yes, love that.
It's a holy grail, truly, and I really, really would love to unlock that holy grail of knowledge and give it back to people because we own it, right? We should really we want to know about it. I mean, the other sources and tools, let's say, where I learn, it's people, other people talking to others, networking, and I use actually my own company, SmartTribe, to network with others. Every single week, I have several conversations with people on SmartTribe and learn from them, network with them. New people coming. I have office hours. People jump on the Google Meetup, and we just talk. And I learn constantly. Only yesterday, I had fantastic, super interesting conversation with one of the researchers talking about open research. I feel very passionate about open research and knowledge and sharing knowledge. Also ethical AI. I have learned heaps from this lady. So talking to people, networking, having mentors is also really, really important. I have some great mentors I met during my career. And now I'm meeting new people, and they are different people for different purposes. Obviously, reading books, blogs, all of that resources. But I learned a lot about entrepreneurship. One of the people I really learned a lot from is Reid Hoffman. I really, really admire what he's doing and learn a lot from his books and podcasts. They are, like I mentioned, John Chambers in business. And also from researchers. So all kind of sources of a knowledge we can reach out, but research papers is one of the one I reach out to most commonly.
Well, and obviously you're a very curious human being, which then makes you just want to find more sources. And what's funny is, Beatrice, you and I met because I was mentoring someone from University of San Francisco, and that's how you and I met. So I would have never met you had Elizabeth not connected us. So, I mean, mentoring helps both ways. And, so often you think mentors is, oh my goodness, this knowledgeable, wise person who's older than no, I have learned so much and been mentored by people much younger than me and way different skill sets. So that's great.
So true, so true. Yeah. I love, maybe not mentoring, but talking to others and learning from others. Doesn't matter the age or even experience. I have learned a lot about startups and from YouTubers, people who are half my age, and they have great ideas. They have fresh perspective. They are future thinking. So many hacks they gave me and ideas. I love it.
I know, it's true. It's true. However, we have to be curious to be able to take it in, and then we have to listen. Yes. All right, great. How do you give your folks development and growth opportunities so that they can continue to learn? My guess is with all this coming at you and with what SmartTribe does for a living, it wouldn't be hard to encourage your team to, continue to learn. So what do you do to help that and help source that for them?
I don't like micromanagement. I like to empower people so they can do things. Obviously, we talk a lot about trainings, give them some tools, even reimburse the courses they take and so on. This is kind of basic, but I really like the approach my grandfather had when he was bringing me up. I lived with my grandparents, who were just old-fashioned, basic rules, basic values in life. Uh-huh. My grandfather, he was a soldier during the Second World War and walked with his Red Army through the whole Europe. When I was 12, he taught me how to use a gun. When I was 15, I knew how to drive a car. And by the age of 10, I spoke already 4 languages. And funny, you might think, oh my God, why do you need the kind of skills nowadays? Funny enough, all those skills became very handy at some point in my life. But
little did you know.
But his philosophy was to empower me, because he said, we're not going to be always around, especially we are grandparents.
Yes.
You have to manage. You are a survivor. We are survivors. In fact, my grandmother was a Holocaust survivor. She knew very, very well to be empowered by center skills and mindset to go through life. And I kind of still believe that, and probably they really ingrain in me. So empowering people is very important. Empowering my children. I have a daughter and she's 18 now and off to college. And I'm saying, listen, you have to manage. I gave you all the basics and now you use it. And I'm the same with people who I work with, to give them the tools to be, I'm very fortunate to have a fantastic team. They are doers. They are creative. So there is really, I have such an easy job. It's just a pleasure working with them.
We shouldn't tell anybody that, Beatrice.
But keep challenging them. It's important. Have a developmental plan. Keep going. Always have some goals and targets. A very Western approach, I know, but always have the targets, milestones. Also pair them with mentors. Encourage to build a network. What I also find important is to give them recognition and praise them. So that's quite important as well.
And I love that whole idea of your team is doers and they're very creative. So they're using both sides of their brains in order to bring themselves to work. And that's pretty important when you think about what you're doing and what you're trying to do. So using the head and the heart is good stuff. Good stuff. All righty. So my last question, what do you do to bring joy into your life so that you're balanced at work? And it can be anything. That doesn't matter to me. I said earlier about that positive attitude. So what do you do to fill yourself up so that when you show up, you're the whole Beatrice that people need to see?
I don't divide this, work and then I have to switch off and be at home here. Be the same person through and through.
Yes.
Obviously, there are moments where some things really get to you. Fundraising is one of the biggest pains I absolutely hate, and I find super stressful. And I really find it really hard not to show to my family that I'm stressed.
Yeah.
So it is hard, but you are the same person. I really like sense of humor and I like fun. At work, we make constantly some jokes and sending each other gifts. And also I'm very fortunate because the guys I work with, they are witty and funny, and they are getting my sense of humor too. I'm a little bit sarcastic. Sense of humor is definitely something I enjoy and I like it. I have it through both at work and at home. I'm not going to be very sophisticated here. My family is my source of enjoyment.
Nice.
And they really, really give me so much, relaxation, pleasure, and happiness. I am obsessed really a little bit with my work, and I am guilty of sometimes talking to someone, and my eyes and my eyes are looking at you, but my mind is just like
somewhere else.
I'm constantly thinking about work. It's that's what it is when you are a founder. But I really enjoy it. They give me the space in my head. They give me the spine, the moral. Let's say having children really gives you the moral barometer as well. Keeps you straight, down to earth. Just very, very simple, basic things in life. Enjoying meal, going out. I also really like sport, because my mind always works, always think. Even when I talk to someone about something, frivolous, I still think about work in the other part of my brain. But sport, it's something which this is the only tool which manages to switch off my brain, because I push myself hard, running, cycling, kickboxing, whatever it is. Push yourself hard. I sweat out, all my muscles hurt. And at some point, your brain stops working. There's nothing else except the tiredness, the exercise. And that's the only time I think my brain really has a rest.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. The sports thing, because then what happens is you can't think of anything else or you'll injure yourself. Yeah. That's wonderful. Okay. Wow. Beatrice. Oh, I'm so excited. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything you told us, being vulnerable, telling us and providing us so much information. I love this whole concept of you're so clear about management and leadership, and you're so clear about you got to empower your people. It just, it's a pure delight. It was just a pure delight to talk to you today. So thank you. Thank you, Beatrice.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Karen.
Yeah, absolutely. So thanks everyone for listening. And I'm Karen Colligan, and you've been listening to Beatrice Zatorska, who is the co-founder and CEO of SmartTribe. Till the next episode of the Let's Talk Leadership podcast, have a good one. And don't forget to keep it real.